when I started working 20 years ago, any sort of scientist or mainstream professional would have thought that I was crazy when I was talking about this. Now there is a huge amount of science coming out because about 8-10 years ago, the Western science got interested in microbiome and the gut flora. They suddenly discovered that we have microbes living inside our bodies, particularly inside our digestive system. And they started researching all this microbial community. And now paper after paper is coming out that rheumatoid arthritis is caused by gut flora, autism is caused by gut flora, schizophrenia is caused by gut flora. Every chronic disease is caused by gut flora. That is what GAPS is. Gut and psychology syndrome, gut and physiology syndrome. The concept of it is that we human beings are microbial communities. Our bodies are microbial communities. We have more microbes in us than human cells. And the biggest part of this microbial community lives inside the digestive system. And there is a reason why. Because if you ask any microbiologist, what is the most powerful influence on the microbial community in nature? The answer will be immediately food. You change the food supply to a microbial community, either in a petri dish in a lab or in any other environment. Within hours, everything changes. Certain species of microbes disappear, other microbes proliferate, and the whole microbial community changes, completely changes. So food is the most powerful influence on any microbial community in nature. Since human body is a microbial community, there is nothing more powerful in this world in its influence on your health than food that you eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And the biggest part of that microbial community lives in the gut because that is where we put our food. That is why they're there.
Is the gut?
That's right, they're in the gut. Vast majority, about 90% of all cells in the human body have been estimated to be in the gut, and they are microbes. And every microbial community is highly balanced. It has to be harmonious. Every species of microbes have to be present in there. The basis of every microbial community are fungi, as Americans would pronounce it. And then fungi grow long, meters long micelli, protrusions, like roads.
Right.
And these micelli create the roadwork inside any microbial community. And their diameter is about 100 meters, 100 times bigger than the size of a bacterium. Viruses are even smaller. So bacteria, viruses, and other smaller creatures create their little villages, their hamlets, their towns along this roadwork created by fungi. And along this micelli of fungi, food is delivered, water is delivered, wastes are taken away. Lots of things happen in there because that's a roadwork in there. So every microbial community is highly structured. There is no chaos there, highly structured. This is like a sophisticated, huge city with roads, lanes, streets, gas supply, electricity supply, water supply, waste taken away, shops working, everything working. If you take an antibiotic, or if you take another chemical that damages microbes, it's like an atomic bomb thrown into that city. The whole city is broken. All communications are broken. It doesn't work anymore. And large parts of that microbial community are killed by that antibiotic. But no antibiotic in the world can kill every microbe. The rest of the microbial community will remain, but the balance is gone. The structure is gone. The harmony is gone. Certain species then proliferate. They're not controlled by other species which got killed by that antibiotic, and you have an imbalance, and as a result, you get a disease. What happens in a GAPS person who has a damaged gut flora, and it usually happens after courses of antibiotics. And today, unfortunately, because of the activities of industrial agriculture, which uses so many chemicals, majority of these chemicals are broad-spectrum antibiotics in their nature. So every bite of food that you buy in a supermarket comes with these chemicals. People are eating antibiotics for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You're damaging your microbial community, the very essence of you, with every bite of food that you buy in a supermarket. And when that happens, Many microbes proliferate and they become pathogens. As part of the balanced, harmonious microbial community, they were all doing their little jobs and they were all in balance and nobody caused any trouble. But if you allow any one of them to proliferate and get out of balance, they turn into nasty pathogens. They can cause a lot of trouble. They digest food in their own way, converting it into millions of poisons. At the same time, they damage the integrity of the gut wall, making it porous and leaky. So your gut wall becomes like a sieve, literally holes develop there. So all these poisons absorb into your blood, into your lymph, microbes get in, undigested foods get in too. The food doesn't get a chance to be digested properly before it absorbs through these holes in the gut wall. The food absorbs undigested. And you have this mixture of toxins and undigested foods flowing from the gut into the blood and the lymph. And then the blood and the lymph distributes it all over the body. And wherever these things get to, they cause disease. If they get into your brain, a child gets a learning disability, an adult will get mental illness. If it gets into your lungs, you get asthma or some other disease. If it gets into your joints, you will get arthritis of some kind, osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, many varieties of arthritis. Wherever they get to, they will cause disease. That is what happens now in the majority of people, particularly in the Western world, because the Western world is the most industrialized. The food is the most denatured, industrialized, and laced with agricultural chemicals.
Listening to you speak, it reminds me of, I just read a book called The Hidden Half of Nature by David Montgomery. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that book, but he correlates the gut being similar to soil. And I had no clue that soil had so many microbes until recently. I mean, I might be an idiot, but I had no clue that it was basically like a living organism in the soil. And
Absolutely.
That's
soil is a microbial community. I'm an organic farmer. In the last 10 years, I have become an organic farmer because I understood that we have to produce our own food if we want good quality food. You simply have to, in the Western world in particular. So soil is a microbial community, very rich microbial community. And again, the basis of it are fungi called mycorrhiza. These fungi, they attach themselves to the hair roots of the plants and they go through the soil. And as a result, in the soil, they connect every tree with every tree. All the grasses in between these trees are connected with each other. This is the World Wide Web. It's the internet, far more sophisticated than our internet that we're using on our computers. It's the internet that nature had before us for millions of years in the soil. The whole planet is covered in this fungal blanket, mycorrhizal blanket. Trees in Australia might be communicating with trees in Britain and other European countries through this fungal blanket. And along that fungal network, smaller creatures create their villages, towns, their little communities. Bigger creatures crawl about, eating them. You know, soil is a living matrix made out of organic matter, fungi, and bacteria and viruses and protozoa and archaea and bigger creatures like worms and insects and caterpillars and mice and voles and moles and all sorts of creatures. So what happens with industrial agriculture? They use chemicals and they use practices which destroy that microbial community. They turn soil into dead dust with no life in it whatsoever. Without this microbial community, the plants are not fed by the soil. The soil just turns into a dead dust, which just holds the roots in place, but doesn't feed them in any possible way. And that is what's happening in the industrial agriculture in the Western world. All the fields around us, my farm is like an oasis, surrounded by industrial wasteland. It's all arable fields. When you look at the soil there, it's dead. And the farmers around us, several farmers around us, who are usually old boys in their 70s, they tell me when I was a boy, there were worms in the soil and everything grew without chemicals. Today, if I don't put chemicals on my land, nothing will grow at all. Plants get all their nutrition from chemicals. The soil cannot feed them because it's dead. It's destroyed.
Is there ever a point where you would take medication? Because you kind of you mentioned how humans take medication to, I think you said, break a fever or something. Um, is medication good? Is there ever a point where you would take medication, or are you?
No,
No.
never with any kind of non-life-threatening illness.
And why is that?
Absolutely not. Because medications are designed to bring down symptoms. Symptoms are the way your body communicates to you that something's wrong. You've done something wrong to it, that you need to change what you're doing. You need to stop. You need to serve your body. You need to give your body good food, rest, warmth, relax, fresh air, remove yourself out of a harmful environment. The only time when you need mainstream medicine is when you have a life-threatening situation. When something happens that is drastic, life-threatening, then you need the mainstream medicine. When there is anything chronic, you do not want to go to the mainstream medicine, particularly when you have a fever, because fever is a magnificent tool of our immune system. When the immune system uses that tool, when it raises your fever, it destroys all the cancer cells in your body. It destroys parasites. It cleanses you in a powerful way. It detoxifies you. So when you come out, if you don't reduce that fever, if you don't take any medications, any painkillers or anything for the fever, if you allow the fever to run for as long as the body needs it, you come out of it as good as new. Any chronic disease that was putting roots in your body will be gone. You'll be clean and you'll be healthy and you'll be reset. It's a reset of your health. So now researchers and have been for the last few decades studying the effects of fever on treatment of cancer, chronic fatigue syndrome, Lyme disease, and the results are very promising. They can induce fever in a person, and as the fever runs, the person recovers from these illnesses. It is the most powerful and the most amazing tool of our immune system. So in the Blue Book, I have a whole chapter where I describe what to do when you get a fever. If you got a virus, if you got a cold or something like that, the last thing you want to do is to go to work, take a painkiller and go to work. Bring the fever down. That's the last thing you want to do. You want to stop doing what you're doing. You call your work and tell them you're ill. You go to bed, you stay in bed, you drink hot water with lemon, you make a butter honey mixture with a bit of salt, and that's all you eat. You just keep drinking and eating that mixture, and you sweat and sweat and sweat until the fever comes down to a more sort of moderate level and you feel hungry. Then you boil a chicken. You make a chicken stock. And you eat only that chicken stock. You eat that chicken and you drink some kefir, some homemade kefir. You don't eat anything else. And you will come out of the whole thing new. Your body will be rejuvenated, healed, repaired. It's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity when your body, and before your body does that, it will prepare for it. It will make major decisions. It will make huge preparations in your body for that cleansing. So fever is a huge cleansing, healing, repairing, rejuvenating procedure for your body. The last thing you want to do is to reduce the fever. It is particularly important with a baby or a toddler who's developed the first fever in their life. You know, young parents in particular usually get frightened, run to the doctors, start giving the child paracetamol, you know, all sorts of things to bring the fever down. That is a very wrong thing to do to your child. You are setting your child for a lifetime of chronic illnesses. It is very important to allow the fever to run, particularly the first fever. It will be high only maybe for a few hours in a little one like that, maximum a day or two. Then it will reduce. You just let your child sweat. You make sure the child is hydrated. Keep giving the child hot water with a bit of lemon and some honey butter mixture, which I described in the Blue Book, what to do. And let the child sweat and let the child be ill. It's very important because when this happens, the first fever in a child, children come into this world like little aliens. Their immune system are immature. They need to learn about this environment. And they need to create very, very complex protective mechanisms. How to deal with this toxicity, with that microbe, with this kind of chemical, with, the whole world, basically. And the first fever it's like a whole university for the immune system of a small child. You must allow the immune system to go through that university. If you do, then you will allow your child to develop the kind of immune system that will not allow to ever develop any allergies, any autoimmune illnesses, or cancer for the rest of that person's life.
So
Certainly 2 days of misery are nothing compared to a lifetime of illnesses.
Oh, absolutely.
It's worth doing that. And that is what people knew in all the traditional societies until recent times.
So are you saying that if we have a fever and we take ibuprofen to break the fever and we get better, but we don't get 100% better, our body doesn't go back to a 100%. We kind of degrade our body. So we might get better, but we're not 100%. We're only at 90%. Is that kind of what you're alluding to?
You don't get better. No. You don't get better. Every cold, every fever is an opportunity for the body to cleanse and rejuvenate and reset itself. What you've done by taking that tablet of ibuprofen, you've stopped that process. So all the toxins that were accumulated in your body will stay in your body. All the parasites that are attached to these toxins, because toxins always come with parasites. So the higher your toxic load in the body, the higher is the parasitic load. They will stay in your body because the fever removes all the parasites. It drives them out. It kills them. And all the cancer cells which are constantly formed in the human body will stay and have a chance to grow and proliferate and get into something more serious. So what you've done, you've left your body polluted, infested with parasites, and developing cancers. When your body actually took effort to prepare, to cleanse all that load out, you've stopped that process. What makes you feel unwell? Not the virus. It's your own immune system that makes you feel unwell. Your own immune system, by doing its work, gives you fever, inflammation, headache, aching joints, aching muscles, malaise, sweating, sneezing, coughing, snotty nose, all of that. All of these are the activities of the immune system. Your immune system is your friend. But by taking ibuprofen or taking another medication which brings down symptoms, you beat the immune system down. You don't allow it to do the work, to do the job. You will always pay for that. You may not pay right now, you may pay next year or in a few years, but you will pay for that with a far more serious illness.
Well, as a parent, I'm reminded of something that just happened recently. My daughter broke out in hives. And we took her to the doctor and they gave her some steroids and some steroid cream. And she was, I try to live as naturally as possible. I buy, like organic food, and we don't put a lot of chemicals on our faces, or we don't use chemicals in our showers. And I felt really odd about letting her take that medication. So I'm wondering, what would you have done in that particular example if your daughter or granddaughter had hives? Would you just let it run its course?
Absolutely. And the most important thing is to change the gut flora, because hives, asthma, eczema, hay fever, and other such things, and various itchy skin rashes are called a group of atopic conditions. They are all due to an imbalance in your immune system. There are two major arms in the immune system, Th1 and Th2. The first arm is responsible for normal reactions to the environment, to pollen, to cats, to dogs, to horses, to food, to chemicals, to various things. The second arm is not responsible for dealing with that. It's responsible for dealing with some internal situations. The agent in the body that keeps the first arm strong and up to the job is our gut flora. When the gut flora is damaged, this arm becomes disabled. It doesn't work anymore. So the second arm, which is not designed to deal with pollen and cats and dogs and horses and, environment, tries to do the job for this disabled brother, but it uses wrong tools. And because it uses wrong tools, you start reacting to things in the environment. You start getting hay fever, eczema, asthma, hives, skin rashes, and all sorts of other atopic reactions. In order to deal with that situation, we have to bring that disabled brother off the floor and up and get it strong and functioning. Yeah. So the most important thing in order to do that, you need to straighten up the gut flora. So what you need fermented foods, and you need the GAPS diet for that. The GAPS diet will do it quite quickly. Quite quickly and quite effectively.
What's some of the staples in the GAPS diet that you use on all your patients? What's some of the main stuff?
Absolutely. The most important staples are the meat stock, which we eat every day. We make soups with it, not bone broth. There's a difference between bone broth and meat stock.
Yeah, so what's meat stock?
Many people are confused.
Yeah.
Meat stock is made by a chunk of animal with nothing removed. There is a bone in the middle, bone marrow in there, there's a joint, there's meat on it, there's skin on it, hopefully, all the sinew, all the arteries, all the nerves, and whatever the chunk of animal will contain. It's a whole chicken, it's a whole duck, it's a whole, half a turkey maybe. It's giblets, would be nice to have, or feet of the bird. It's a chunk of leg of lamb or beef or pork. And usually the sort of less popular cuts are the best. Heads, tails, feet, legs, spine, necks, bits and pieces like that. You put it in a pan, you fill it up with water, you add some salt and pepper to it, and you cook it for about 3 or 4 hours until the meat starts falling off the bones. And it's a whole meal. You eat that meat, you polish off the bones, you bang the bone marrow out and you eat it as well, and you drink the stock. That stock we call the meat stock. And that is the basis, the staple of the GAPS diet. Bone broth is very different. We do not make bone broth in GAPS nutritional protocol.
Oh.
It's made with bare bones where everything's been stripped. Quite often these are cooked bones, which have been cooked before. We don't do that. We always cook a raw chunk of animal. And you cook those bones for days with some acid, with some vinegar added. The vinegar washes out calcium from the bones and minerals. So the bone broth is very, very different from meat stock. And the bone broth is very rich in glutamic acid, which can make some people ill. Has very high levels of glutamic acid. Can give people headaches and mental problems if they're not ready for it. Meat stock is very different. It's healing, it's delicious, it's clear. And then you can take that meat stock, add some vegetables to it and make beautiful soup. And we always strip off all the meat from the cooked bones, every bit of soft tissue, take the bone marrow out as well, cut it in bite-sized pieces and add it back into the soup. Once you've made a large pot of that soup, it keeps in the fridge for 10 days or so. So you can always take a portion of it, warm it up, and you have a meal, a very nourishing meal. So that is the basis of the GAPS diet. A soup like that, made with a meat stock. The second most important factor in the GAPS diet are fermented foods. We use fermented dairy. We always ferment raw milk from real breeds of animals on pasture. Not synthetic cows developed in laboratories. Majority of milk in supermarkets comes from those Frankenstein cows. It's a Frankenstein milk. It causes every disease in the world. You don't want to buy milk in supermarkets. You want to find a farmer who's got Jersey cows, Guernsey cows, other natural breeds of cow which Mother Nature created, not some scientist in a lab. And you want those cows on pasture, under the sunlight, and you want their milk unpasteurized, raw. So we use that kind of milk. We ferment it at home to make kefir, to make yogurt, to make cheese, to make whey. We use cream also to make sour cream. And these are the kind of dairy products that we use in the GAPS nutritional protocol. The third very important part for a particularly malnourished person, and majority of Westerners are malnourished. They may eat a lot, but they're lacking in many vital nutrients, are organ meats, liver in particular, of animals. Liver pate, we make beautiful liver pate at home. So because liver is almost 100 times richer in certain vitamins and other nutrients than the muscle of the animal, the steak. It's very, very rich. So we eat heart, we eat lungs, we eat kidneys, we eat stomach, we eat liver. If we can get hold of intestines, we will eat them as well. So all the organs and brains in particular, all the organs are consumed of the animal, particularly for people who have nutritional deficiencies. So the GAPS diet removes all nutritional deficiencies very quickly, so you don't need any supplements. They're expensive, and the quality can be very questionable, particularly in the modern world. So these are the three major elements. We remove all grains, we remove all starch. Starch is a very difficult molecule for human beings to digest. It's huge molecule under the microscope. It's like a bush with many, many branches. Very difficult to digest. Most starch is undigestible. And when it's undigestible like that, it's perfect food for pathogenic microbes in the gut. So anything containing starch is out.
Dang.
And that is all cereals, all grains, and everything made out of them.
And potatoes.
And potatoes, and potato family.
That hurts me. I love some potatoes.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, potatoes and wheat and rice and corn and millet and quinoa and tapioca and couscous and all of it. All of it. Sugar, all processed foods are out. You cannot trust food industry for a moment. So anything processed, absolutely not. And we do not buy food in supermarkets. We buy food from organic farmers, directly from the farms. We visit the farms and we buy food directly from these people in bulk, maybe once a week. People who live in the city, what I recommend to them is go to your local farmers market, make some contacts, talk to the farmers who sell their produce there, take their contact details, ask them, can I visit your farm, please? A good farmer like that will always agree because they've got nothing to hide. They have no bags of chemicals lying about. They have no refrigerators full of steroids and antibiotics for their animals. They'll be perfectly happy to welcome you to come and visit their farm. Once you found a few farms where you can buy meat and milk and eggs and vegetables and berries, maybe, whatever you can find, then you just drive there once a week. You get all your supplies, bring it to the city, and that is your supplies. Meat is best bought in bulk. You can buy a whole animal, just all it takes is just to buy a second-hand freezer, put it in your garage or somewhere in your house, and you have your meat right there. You don't have to search for a piece of meat here and there. I usually put my clients who live in one city together in touch with each other. So they form a group. So this week, this family drove and brought everybody's bits and pieces. Next week, somebody else will do that. Next week, somebody else will do that. When the group becomes big enough, many farmers are happy to deliver to one place. So then other families can come and pick up their bits and pieces from one house. So all it gets is just getting organized. And then you're getting good food, quality food, from an honest, decent farmer. And both sides win in this situation because governments in the Western world support industrial agriculture. They give them subsidies and they make their lives much easier. Where organic farmers, they make their life very difficult. They don't give them any support whatsoever, and they just meddle and make their lives difficult. And the only organic, truly good, loving farmers who love their land, love their animals, love their birds, whatever, grass and the whole environment, it's very difficult for them to survive in this world. And the only ones who do survive are the ones who have a good customer base, people who come and buy directly from them without any middlemen. So they can sell directly to the customer. So not only you will be serving your family with the best quality food, health-giving food, at the same time you'll be supporting a good farmer, giving him a livelihood, allowing him to survive in this world.
On the GAPS diet, how many times a day does someone eat?
When you're hungry.
Okay.
You eat when you're hungry. So some people eat once a day. Some people eat twice. Usually twice is enough because the food is so rich.
Yeah. It's very, I would call it an animal-based diet. What kind of vegetables do you recommend?
A whole lot apart from potato family. You can have as many vegetables as you like. And we ferment a lot of vegetables.
Mm.
I encourage people to grow their own vegetables, to have their own vegetable garden, grow your own vegetables. And whatever, vegetable has ripened all at once and you have just too much of it at once, ferment it. You can ferment every vegetable, any vegetable. Carrots, beetroot, cabbages, Brussels sprouts, onions, garlic can be fermented. Radishes can be fermented. Anything, absolutely. And then you have a supply for the winter. You have all these jars with vegetables fermented. Fermentation is something not optional for human beings. Because for all of our existence on this planet, we did not have refrigeration. And we had no supermarkets where you can buy anything out of season at any time. People, for most of our existence on this planet, people grow their own food. And when your cabbages all suddenly got ripe in September, you have to do something with them. Otherwise, they will rot or spoil, and for the rest of the year, you'll have no cabbage. Cabbage is difficult to grow. Takes 8 months to grow cabbage. So what people would do, they would make sauerkraut. They'll ferment it because fermentation is the best way to preserve food for a long time. Sauerkraut keeps for 5, 6, 7 years, just gets better. So if you have 1 year, a good harvest of cabbages, you can make a large amount of sauerkraut. It'll last you several years because you don't know next year you might have a poor harvest of cabbages. Every year is different rainfall, different weather, and so on. Not only it preserves food for a long time, at the same time, the microbial community which ferments the cabbage pre-digests it. It breaks the tough structure of the cabbage and releases many nutrients into the mixture, making them bioavailable. For example, a handful of sauerkraut will give you 20 times more bioavailable vitamin C than the same handful of fresh cabbage. Because in fresh cabbage, vitamin C is locked in cellular structure and human digestive system cannot extract it. It goes right through you without doing you any good. In sauerkraut, the microbes have done all the work. They've released all that vitamin C into the juice, into the mixture. So every time you eat sauerkraut, you're eating the best vitamin C supplement in the world. You get a large amount of vitamin C. It's the best vitamin C supplement. And this is just vitamin C. Lots of other nutrients get released into the mixture and made bioavailable. So fermented vegetables are far more nourishing and much easier to digest than fresh vegetables or cooked vegetables. And you can also cook fermented vegetables. After you fermented them, you can use them in soups. You can cook them.
I'm curious, in your practice, when you're working with kids with ADHD or any merit of medical condition, have you ever come across a child that you haven't been able to help?
Not a child, parents. Because at the end of the day, it's the parents that have to do the work. Hard work. It's always easy to slide down, but to climb up is always hard work. So it's always easy to go down to the doctor, get a drug which will suppress symptoms, which will make you feel a little bit better, but the disease will continue. It will continue destroying you. And drugs usually stop working over time, so the doses have to be increased or other drugs have to be added. And every drug has side effects, giving you more symptoms. And quite often other drugs are prescribed to control the side effects. So you finish up taking handfuls of pills and not getting any better. Pulling the problem by the tail or by the back foot or by the front foot, or you just don't get any. Your body just gets more and more toxic and more ill as a result. To deal with your body properly, to heal it properly, you have to do the hard work. You can't take the easy route. You have to cook. You have to reorganize your kitchen, reorganize your life. You have to find good supplies of food. And you have to deal with the fussy eating habits of the children, because majority of gapsters are fussy eaters. It's a symptom of gaps. It isn't a whim. It isn't that the person is capricious. It has solid physiological reasons behind it. The pathogenic flora, which overgrows in the digestive system of these children and adults, loves particular foods, particularly processed carbohydrates, loves bread, pasta, cakes, biscuits, sugar, all of that. And when these pathogens feast on these things, on these processed carbohydrates, they convert them into millions of poisons. But they're very clever. Part of that toxicity, part of those chemicals, they produce in the form of endorphins and morphines, which absorb, get into the brain, and get the brain addicted to them. These are addictive chemicals. So the brain wants more. The person is turned into a drug addict. He's not buying drugs on the street corner, from drug dealers. The drugs are manufactured right there inside your digestive system by your abnormal gut flora, by the microbes. But you're a drug addict. You're addicted to brain, to bread, to pasta, to chocolate muffins, to sugar, chocolate, potatoes, and other processed carbohydrates. And that's all you want to eat. This is particularly prominent in autistic children, hyperactive children, in people with serious autoimmune illnesses, serious allergies, and mental illness too, very much. So not only they have to change their lifestyle, start cooking, learn how to cook properly, learn all the recipes, get the proper quality food. On top of that, they have to deal with that addiction, which is a hard work for parents. In the yellow book, I have described a procedure, a behavior modification procedure, which is based on ABA, on applied behavior analysis, how to deal with a fussy eater, how to help a child to break out of that vicious cycle of addiction to the very foods that destroy them, that harm them. It can take a few days to get the child out of there, if the whole family is united and they really work on it. I had very severe cases where we pulled the child out, and then the child started eating everything. Because you can't heal a child that refuses to eat. You have to deal with that.
So what would that look like if a child, you present them with the GAPS diet for the first couple of days and they're just not eating? They just don't eat?
Well, fasting is very useful. Fasting is very healing. So I had children who went into a fast. They just ate nothing. You just make sure that the child drinks enough water, gets hydrated. And of course, these children are whiny and clingy and achy and not happy. So they're not easy to be around, these children. And they keep demanding their favorite foods. They keep asking for chocolate and for crisps and for breakfast cereal or whatever they're addicted to. The parents have to be strong. And the whole family must be united at that point. And there should not be any of these foods in the house. Because if it's somewhere up there in the cupboard, he'll get there.
Yeah.
The child will find them. Yeah. So eventually the child will stop fasting and ask for food. And you keep offering this child soup, meat stock, soup, nothing else. You can offer meat. You can offer any other GAPS dish. Some children are very stubborn, very strong, and it takes days to break that horse. Some children buckle quite quickly on the first day. And I say we have a whole procedure for it.
Do you drink coffee?
No.
Oh, dang it. How long have you not drinking coffee?
Coffee is not excluded from the GAPS diet. You can continue drinking coffee. Okay. You can use honey to sweeten it. You can use cream, sour cream in particular, not put in the coffee, but eat it with the coffee, because it will bubble in the hot liquid. It's okay to have coffee on a GAPS diet. I personally don't drink it because it knocks you out of balance. Coffee, chocolate have substances in them which upset the balance in the body. They swing you into one direction, which inevitably leads to swinging into another direction. So you go on this swing between two unbalanced extremities. And that can bring migraines. It can bring episodes when you don't feel well, your energy drops. It's better to keep yourself on an even keel. That is why I don't drink coffee.
How long have you not drinking coffee for? Have you ever drinking coffee?
I've drunk coffee before.
Okay.
I did, yes. For
So
a few years. For a few years now.
what does your daily life look like? How many times a day do you eat? What are some of the foods that that you eat?
I wake up in the morning and I drink water with whey or water with kefir. I like diluting my kefir and making a very refreshing drink called ayran. It's a Middle Eastern drink. And then I run around the farm, look what needs to be done. There's a lot to do. Then by about 10 o'clock, about 11 o'clock, I come and have breakfast. And it's always eggs with bacon or with some sort of, or liver pate and some sort of salad. Usually it's fermented cabbage, fermented garlic, sauerkraut in the winter. In the summer, it can be tomatoes, cucumbers, whatever's growing, whatever there is. And plenty of fat. The eggs are cooked in plenty of fat. The fat content of every meal needs to be high. The more fat the person eats, and this must be animal fats, never vegetable oils. Vegetable oils are poisonous. They cause every disease. Majority of people are not aware of this because they promote it very heavily. No, vegetables should not be even in the house. The only vegetable oil we have in the house is cold pressed olive oil of high quality, Greek olive oil, and we only use it on ready served meals, on salads. I can pour it on my breakfast when it's served on the plate, if I would like some. It must not be used for cooking because plant oils are very fragile. They're easily destroyed by heat, by light, by pressure, by solvents, by other things. And once they're destroyed, once their chemical structure is damaged, they're very, very harmful on a very fundamental level to every cell, every organ, every system in the body. Extremely harmful, and they accumulate. They've been implicated in every chronic disease for almost 100 years now. We have enough research now for almost 100 years to show that nobody should be cooking the vegetables, anything at all, never. So we cook on pork fat, lamb fat, beef fat, goose fat, duck fat, ghee, butter can be used, and coconut oil can be used. Because coconut oil is saturated, so it doesn't get damaged in the same way as other vegetable oils.
Yeah. So your thoughts, you must think the vegan community and the vegetarian community are pretty crazy then if they're consuming nothing but plants and it's very fiber heavy, very carb heavy. What are your thoughts on those types of diets?
I've written a book on this subject. It's called Vegetarianism Explained.
Okay.
Book. The information you've got in that book, you won't find anywhere else. Because I haven't got it from any other book, from any scientist. This is purely clinical experience. I started getting all these youngsters with mental illnesses, anorexia in particular, who became ill because of vegetarianism. They were perfectly healthy youngsters before they became vegetarians. The pro-vegetarian agenda is pushed very aggressively now by the mainstream on the whole population of the planet because of political and corporate interests, not because of saving the planet or being kind to animals or health benefits, or because all of those things, the truth is the reverse. You do not save the planet, you destroy the planet by vegetarianism. You do not save your health, you destroy your health. And you do not show kindness to animals, you destroy the animals by vegetarianism and veganism. I've described it all and explained it all in the book. So when I started getting all these youngsters, I got very interested in the whole concept of vegetarianism and started looking for some scientific data. And what I discovered very quickly, that there isn't one scientific study we can trust on this subject. None. All of them have been conducted by pro-vegetarian lobby, and they are full of lies. You cannot trust any of them, particularly the China study. That is one great big lie. So having discovered that, I thought, well, where else shall I look? I started looking at basic sciences of biochemistry, physiology, zoology, biology, and clinical experience, my own and other doctors in this field. There's a lot of clinical experience accumulated in this area. And based on all that information, I have written this book. And what I explain in this book, that the only things in nature that can truly digest plant matter are microbes. Nobody else on our beautiful planet can digest plants. Only microbial communities can do that. So Mother Nature used that fact in creating the digestive system of herbivorous animals. Cows, goats, giraffe, antelope, deer, and other goat, and other herbivorous animals have several stomachs, large stomachs, full of microbes. So the cow doesn't digest the grass herself. It's that microbial community in her rumen, in her 3 enormous stomachs, that do the work for her. They digest the grass for her. We human beings do not have a rumen. We have one little stomach, very small stomach, which produces hydrochloric acid. Very hostile environment for microbes. In fact, it's the only place in the human body that virtually has no microbes. It's got very few microbes surviving in there, because the acidity can go below 2, below 1 pH when we're hungry. Hydrochloric acid is completely sterilizing. So plants are indigestible for human beings. When we swallow them into that acidic environment, they just sit there waiting for their turn, to find some environment where there are microbes to digest them. But hydrochloric acid, pepsin, and other elements of stomach juice in the human is perfectly designed to digest meat, fish, eggs, and dairy. So these are the things that are properly digested in our stomach. And then the whole mixture is passed into several meters of intestines where absorption of food happens. And of course, the only things that can be absorbed are the things that are properly digested. So the only foods that feed us, build our heavy bones, muscles, our big brain, big lungs, big heart, big liver, the whole physical structure of your human body. The only foods that build that structure and maintain that structure and rejuvenate it and heal any damage are animal foods. Plants cannot do that. They're incapable of feeding us because they're, first of all, indigestible for human beings. And secondly, they have inappropriate protein and inappropriate fat. Human body, when you remove water out of it, about 70% of us by weight is water. What's left in the dry weight is 50-50 protein and fat. When we analyze human protein and fat in a lab, we find that they are almost identical to proteins and fat we get from meat, fish, eggs, and dairy. So those foods provide the best nutrients for us, the most appropriate nutrients for our own physiology, for our own anatomy and structure, and the most digestible ones. Plants have plenty of protein and fats in them, but they have completely different biochemical structure, which is inappropriate for building our protein and our fat. They do not feed us, plants. They're not designed to feed us. Plants are designed to cleanse us. They provide a lot of juices, some vitamins, some minerals, some phytonutrients, antioxidants, phytates, and other things which act as cleansers. So it's important for human beings to be well fed and to be cleansed. So that's why we eat both. But of course, it's not black and white. Animal foods, particularly raw, are highly cleansing too. They can also cleanse you. So that's one thing that I've discovered. Then I was contacted by this group of mothers from USA who had babies with a condition called FPIES. It's food-induced protein enterocolitis syndrome. Basically, these are exclusively breastfed babies, a few weeks old, little darlings, vomiting diarrhea. The child is not putting weight on. The child is losing weight and dying, basically. Not developing mentally, not developing physically, despite the fact that the mother's breastfeeding the child. Obviously, doctors get involved, they test the child, and they find that the child is allergic to all protein on the planet. So breastfeeding stops at that point. The child is put on synthetic elemental formula, and the parents are told you can't give the child any protein. Just give him some boiled carrots or something. These children, if they stay on the mainstream treatment, they develop profound mental and physical disability, and many of them die, don't survive. So this group of mothers in desperation have been looking for answers. So they've contacted me. And the first thing I try to do to put them on the most restricted end of the GAPS diet, where we have foods which are the easiest to digest, the gentlest on the digestive system. It's largely meat stock, fermented dairy, kefir, well cooked gelatinous meats, raw egg yolks, things like that. So we put them on that stage. It wasn't enough. And I knew by then that plants are difficult for humans to digest, impossible. And they're actually very damaging to a digestive system that is already challenged in a human being. The more damaged one's digestive system is, the more careful that person has to be with plant matter. The less plants they can tolerate. In order to eat the full sort of spread of plants, we have to have quite a cast iron digestive system, quite a strong digestive system. So we had to remove all plants for these babies. All plants. The children were entirely on animal foods, on meat stock, on boiled meats, on fermented dairy, on egg yolks, and on fish, boiled fish again, as a stock and cooked in water. And once we've done that, diarrhea started stopping, vomiting stopped, children started putting weight on, developing, bushy tails, bright eyes, started talking, walking, we started getting results. And what we found then, that it was very, very difficult for us to introduce any kind of plant matter for these children. The first child that went on this diet, it took us 4 years on purely no plant GAPS diet before we could introduce it, the tiniest amount of courgette, which were fermented first, and then we cooked it well in meat stock, and then we blended it. And if we didn't do that, the child will get diarrhea again. They could not tolerate any amount of fiber, any amount of plant matter. It was damaging their digestive system. So it took us years to introduce a few vegetables. But the parents were not concerned because the child was beautiful and healthy and perfectly developed mentally and physically. And I have a large group of these children who have recovered all over the world. We have now a movement of this. So these children, and then I got a few children with ulcerative colitis. I did the same thing with them, and we got complete recoveries. And Crohn's disease, and I have quite a few people with mental illnesses who have been on this no plant GAPS diet now for many years and have no intentions of coming off it because they're functioning well, they're free of illnesses, they stopped all their medications, they're functioning well, and they're happy and healthy, these people. So these patients taught me that human beings can live perfectly well without eating plants at all. We do not need to eat them. But we cannot live without animal foods. We must have animal foods because plants do not feed us. If you want to have a healthy body, healthy mind, and what I have seen vegan communities, people who have been on a vegan protocol for a while. Veganism is not a diet. It's a form of fasting. You are not eating anything that nourishes you. You're only cleansing, cleansing, and cleansing. There are people in this world who are toxic, overweight, they could do with a cleanse. So a few weeks of veganism would do them good. But then at a certain point, the body will stop cleansing, finish cleansing, and it will give you a signal. I'm hungry now. Feed me. And the signal will come in the form of desire for a roast chicken, for bacon, for eggs, for a pot of cream, for a piece of cheese, for something nourishing like that. And you have to listen to that signal because the body now is hungry and it's asking to be fed. But the problem is many vegans do that for political reasons, religious reasons, and various other reasons. They do not listen to their body. They override that signal. And they force their body to continue fasting when the body is asking to be fed. And at that point, the body has no choice but to start breaking down muscle and bone to feed more important organs, to feed the brain, the heart, the lungs, the liver, to survive. So they start losing muscle, they start losing brain capacity. Their mental capacity is seriously damaged in long-term vegans. They cannot think straight, their memory is very poor. They stop menstruating, libido stops because the body simply cannot waste resources on that. So they do not make happy families, these people. They become weak physically, weak mentally, and weak spiritually. There is a belief amongst vegans that in order to become spiritually enlightened, you must be a vegan. That's I don't know where that belief comes from. Has nothing to do with the truth at all. But they've got this belief. And they quote somebody rather who wrote a book that when he was a vegan for a while, he had the most profound spiritual experience. The thing is, when you become weak physically, weak mentally, weak spiritually, and that's what veganism does to you. From the point of view of spiritual masters and other people who are very knowledgeable in that department, in the spirituality and all of that, they tell you that when you become weak like that, other entities get attached to you. Not so good spirits, which are not in bodies, they get attached to you. They feed on your energy. They feed on your weakness. And they can give you a profound spiritual experience. It doesn't mean that it's good at all. It means you're possessed. That's the explanation I received from people who are supposed to know these things.
Well, Dr. Natasha, this has been a great conversation and really eye-opening for me. I'm excited to really dive into your books and recommend people to your website. Are you on social media? Are you on Instagram or Twitter or anything?
Yes, absolutely. There are GAPS groups on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Yeah, all everywhere. My websites are, I've got several websites. I can put them in the chat.
Yeah, do that.
That'll be the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, do that. And I'll post
gaps.me, which is my main website. Then there is gapstraining.com. We do training courses. We have GAPS practitioners and GAPS coaches.
wow.
We have some other training courses for people who don't want to become a practitioner, don't want to necessarily work with other people, but want to help themselves. So we have a wonderful course for people who want to have a baby, already have one, have a baby course. We have a wonderful course for people who have fussy eating children or fussy eaters in the family. That course will really help you to crack that problem. It's a beautifully designed course and run by a lady who went through it personally with her own children. We have a number of other courses. We have a course for beginners who want to go through the GAPS nutritional protocol but find it difficult to comprehend all the information. There's a lot of information. So that course will take you by the hand through the whole diet. All your questions will be answered, and you can do it at the pace that you need to do it at. So please go there and have a look. We have GAPS OnCon coming, GAPS Online Conference, which is starting on Thursday.
Okay.
Yes, for 3 days. We have a fantastic lineup of speakers. So I don't know when your program is coming out.
It'll be a week or so, but
all right. So it'll be afterwards.
Yeah.
Afterwards. But you can get recordings afterwards.
Okay.
So we have a lot of wonderful speakers. It's very well attended. It's an online conference because it's very international. GAPS community is very international. My books have been translated into many, many languages.
Wow.
We have courses in different languages going on. So
that's awesome.
So these are the websites.
Awesome. I'll be sure to put those in the podcast notes and on YouTube and Spotify and Apple. And Dr. Natasha, I greatly appreciate your time. This has been fascinating discussion, and I think what you're doing, your work, is very important, and I'm really appreciative of it.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I know you're a very busy lady, so thank you so much for joining the conversation today.
Thank you very much for your work, for spreading the word.
Absolutely. You have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.